Chapter 1821. Departure to Su Luo had no idea what Nangong Luyun was thinking in his mind. Now she was concentrating on fusing those petals. By the time Su Luo finished this, 3 days had passed. Wiping off the sweat on her forehead, Su Luo fell to the ground. Finally done! Su Luo's eyes were both happy and excited. For a whole year, Su Luo was perplexed by this difficult problem. She was extremely sullen. Now that she has finally finished her task, she was naturally elated. Su Luo raised her chin, looking provocatively at the Yun Luo Red Lotus. Is this not finished? Yun Luo Red Lotus glanced haughtily, seemingly very unwilling to deal with Su Luo. If you don't speak, that's mean you agree. Su Luo looked at it with amusement. Humph! Yun Luo Red Lotus snorted twice, still unwilling to speak. Seemed to be awkward. If you still don't say anything, then you tacitly agree. Now that we've completed the task, can you let us out now? Su Luo was not in a good mood. Having been here for a year had been driving her crazy, and she did not want to stay any longer. Su Luo pulled Nangong Luyun and turned to leave. But Nangong Luyun said with a smile, "Slow down, oh? Is there any problem?" Su Luo's eyes were inquisitive. "You haven't got the reward yet. Are you willing to leave like this?" Nangong Luyun's eyes were gentle and indulging, with white jade fingers poking Su Luo's forehead. Reward? Su Luo's eyes were blank. Why didn't she know what other rewards were waiting for her? "Come with me." Nangong Luyun took Su Luo's hand, turned her around, and walked towards the Yun Luo Red Lotus step by step. His eyes were calm, his smile was shallow, and there was a sense of coldness in his mouth. Finally, 3 steps away from the Yun Luo Red Lotus, he stopped. Su Luo stared at the Yun Luo Red Lotus cautiously. She must remain alert at all times. Now the awakened Yun Luo Red Lotus was at its peak condition. Heaven knows how powerful it was, so she had to guard against it. "What are you looking at?" The Yun Luo Red Lotus was stared at by Nangong Luyun's deep and incisive eyes, which made it glared resentfully. "What do you think?" Nangong Luyun asked in a leisurely and relaxed manner. "Humph!" Yun Luo Red Lotus was too lazy to care about him. "Go by yourself, or should I do it?" Nangong Luyun's eyes were filled with lazy smiles, but there was a perseverance in the smile. What he meant was obviously asking the Yun Luo Red Lotus. Su Luo was stunned. "You mean," in Su Luo's impression, the Yun Luo Red Lotus was a very powerful existence. Would Nangong Luyun provoke it if he talked like this? As for whether he could take away the Yun Luo Red Lotus, Su Luo had no hope at all. When the Yun Luo Red Lotus was not awake, that was the best time, but she didn't grasp it, so how could she get the Yun Luo Red Lotus now? Thinking of this, Su Luo kept sighing. But Nangong Luyun's words sounded in Su Luo's ears. Plus he stared quietly at the Yun Luo Red Lotus, smiling with an enchanting smile and evil charm. Go, or not. His manner was imposing and oppressive. Chapter 1822. Departure 3. Under the powerful coercion of Nangong Luyun, the Yun Luo Red Lotus even dropped its head silently. Su Luo was surprised. What's going on? Didn't the little thing seem to be pretty arrogant toward her before? Now, that arrogant and bossy appearance, after coming in contact with Nangong Luyun, it suddenly wilted? Wasn't that amazing? In Su Luo's mind, the Yun Luo Red Lotus was very powerful. It had to be said that the big explosion before left a deep memory in Su Luo's heart that would never be forgotten. Yun Luo Red Lotus weakly raised its head, secretly glanced at Nangong Luyun, shrunk its neck, and then suddenly, it strangely opened the huge red lotus petals. The lotus roots extended in all directions, and the branches and leaves expanded rapidly. When it reached its maximum, suddenly, everything stopped abruptly. It seemed that everything was gone. When Su Luo was at a loss, she suddenly found that she had a soft little thing in her hands, and when she looked down, she was dumbfounded. This. How could... At this time, a white, tender, chubby little baby was sucking on the little thumb. The smile was pure, and giggling at her like an angel. A big red belly band on it, with a lifelike red lotus on it. It was pure and enchanting. The little thing in Su Luo's hand were as cute as ginseng dolls. The cheek was pink and tender, which made people want to bite it. Nangong Luoyun was a little dumbfounded for a while. But he quickly reacted, and this little thing that appeared abruptly was the entity of Yun Luo Red Lotus. Yun Luo Red Lotus has two types. One was the shape of a red lotus, which belonged to the attack state, and now, the shape of this little baby was its human form after its transformation. Little baby sucked his little finger, rubbed against Su Luo's arms. He also glanced provocatively at Nangong Luoyun. "Humph! How dare you threaten me? This grandpa will humiliate you." Little Red Lotus ridiculed him in his heart and making faces at Nangong Luoyun. Nangong Luoyun immediately became angry and reached out to pick up the little thing. However, before his hand was near, he was blocked by Su Luo. Su Luo stared at him with disgust. "What are you doing?" Then she pushed him away. Nangong Luoyun froze on the spot, and then he managed to respond in silence. He was pushed away by his beloved woman. "Luo Luo, give him to me." Nangong Luoyun frowned deeply. It was not something he could tolerate that the stinky boy was rubbing around in Su Luo's arms. Su Luo glanced at him unhappily. "You look so fierce, you will frighten him." "Let me hold it." Nangong Luoyun was angry. This showed that his position in the girl's heart was not as good as this rotten little child. "Do you know who it is?" The veins in Nangong Luoyun's forehead was throbbing, but he managed to maintain his demeanor and spoke calmly. "Yun Luo Red Lotus." Su Luo glanced at Nangong Luoyun like an idiot. "You don't think that I'm stupid, do you? Can't even recognize the human form of the Yun Luo Red Lotus?" Nangong Luoyun was stunned. Taking a deep breath, he calmly said another word. "Okay, give it to me now." "No." Su Luo refused straightforwardly. "Why?" Nangong Luoyun didn't understand. Chapter 1823. Departure 4. Don't you see that you're looking like a devil trying to beat his butt? Su Luo said angrily. When Su Luo said this, the white and tender baby Red Lotus was also very cooperative. The two little lotus-like hands were holding Su Luo's clothes tightly and did not let go. The clear, black and white eyes were on the verge of crying and looked extremely wronged. "Good child, little Red Lotus, don't cry. Older sister will not give you to him." Su Luo coaxed little Red Lotus patiently. Nangong Luoyun almost had the impulse to stroke his forehead. Do women really have motherhood radiance when they see little babies? What happened to his family Luo Luo? Too, but he couldn't obstruct and shout at Su Luo. "You don't understand. This rotten little child was deliberately making me jealous. I couldn't say anything like this." Nangong Luoyun took a deep breath and then continued to take a deep breath. After 3 successive breaths, the anger in his heart was barely suppressed. However, at this time, the rotten little child hiding in Su Luo's arms was not finished provoking him and made a face at him. Nangong Luoyun's body moved with a whoosh. "What's wrong?" Su Luo turned her head and looked at Nangong Luoyun, who raised his hand and suddenly got angry. "Do you want to hit me?" No, definitely not." Nangong Luoyun's heart was suffocated. In order to appease Su Luo, he had to make an apology repeatedly. As he was appeasing Su Luo, he had to accept little Red Lotus's contempt for him. "Luo Luo, do you think this rotten little..." When Nangong Luoyun spoke halfway, Su Luo glanced at him, so he had to change how to address his name. "This little baby, we wouldn't raise it, would we?" Su Luo looked at him like an idiot. "Do you think it's necessary for us to raise it with its strength?" Nangong Luoyun was stunned again. This was true. Do you need to raise the first fire in the world? Then, what are you going to do with it? Nangong Luoyun wished he could hit his head now. He didn't want to take this annoying little child back. You see, just in the beginning, he dared to entangle Su Luo to almost have him quarrel with her. Then what about later? In addition, seeing Su Luo treasured the baby just like her own, she held it in her arms and not letting go, which made Nangong Luoyun have a strong sense of crisis. A sense of crisis that his status in Su Luo's heart has declined. "Didn't you say brought it back?" Su Luo was at a loss, naturally opposing him. Nangong Luyun almost choked in one breath. Well, he was courting disaster before, okay? Do you really want to take it back? In fact, if you don't take it back, let it continue to live here. It may be the best for it, if you take it back by force. Nangong Luyun was thinking of the euphemism. But before his words could go out, he saw the annoying, rotten little child with two lotus-like tender hands tightly wrapped around Su Luo's neck. His small body was trembling slightly, and he looked very pitiful, terrified of being left behind. Nangong Luyun's forehead was twitching. This rotten little child's play was quite familiar. Who would really eat this cover? But what made Nangong Luyun feel sad was that his Luo girl really eat this cover. Don't panic, don't panic. Older sister wouldn't leave you here. Let's go out together, okay? Su Luo gently caressed Little Red Lotus's little pigtails, softening her voice. Chapter 1824. Departure 5. Nangong Luyun immediately became jealous. His Luo girl had never coaxed him so softly. I know that this little thing is evil. Now it's obviously pretending. Why did you coax him? Nangong Luyun argued resentfully with Su Luo. Su Luo glanced at him displeasedly. What nonsense are you talking about? It looked like a newborn baby in a human form, like a pure white paper that doesn't understand anything. Don't scare him. Nangong Luyun suffocated in his chest, almost overwhelmed, who couldn't understand anything. Nobody understand better than him, okay? If it was as pure as white paper, then the white paper that day was black. Little Red Lotus was in Su Luo's arms, seeing Nangong Luyun's shriveled appearance, sucking the chubby index finger and feeling immensely proud of himself. Nangong Luyun really wanted to slap it and take the little thing away. But looking at Su Luo, Nangong Luyun could only put this idea away for a while and wait for the opportunity to act. Su Luo was now preoccupied with this little baby. Fortunately, Little Red Lotus was not an ordinary human baby, so raising it was not that complicated. Since Little Red Lotus was willing to follow Su Luo, this was the best thing. So Su Luo decided to take it away. In the way, it were fiery red lava in all directions, and the outside was as hard as a shell. How could we go out? When Su Luo didn't know what to do, she saw the little baby in her arms opened his mouth. Hiss. After a slight noise, the red fiery lava around them disappeared completely, and what surprised Su Luo even more was that now everything became clear at once, and roads opened in all directions. Obviously, they had come out of the shell that they were confined in before. Su Luo looked at the little thing in her arms. Is it really just a little baby? Little Red Lotus laughed at Su Luo, showing pure white, grain-like teeth, and two shallow dimples at the corner of his mouth. He looked like the purest angel from heaven. Su Luo immediately put away her doubts and gently caressed the baby's soft hair. Her eyes was full of distress. Let's go. Nangong Luyun glared impatiently at the rotten little child and pulled Su Luo away quickly. A child was just trouble. A child took so much time and energy from his Luo if it was to born in the future, wouldn't it? When Nangong Luyun thought of this, he immediately made a decision. He would never let Luo girl to give birth. Naturally, Su Luo didn't know what kind of thoughts were hidden under the dignified appearance of Nangong Luyun. At this time, she put down all her mind on the baby. Along the way, Nangong Luyun spoke to Su Luo many times, but he was disrupted by the rotten little child. Nangong Luyun was choked on a belly full of air. In desperation, he decided to speed up, so a few days of journey became only a day. The entrance is in front of us. Su Luo muttered to Nangong Luyun while looking at the map, but we are 9 months late. The gate is definitely closed. I don't know if there is any way to open it. Su Luo's voice carried a trace of gloom and despair. Master's words were in her mind. Master once said that once the gate was already closed, no matter who it was, there was no way to open it again. It's been 9 months late. How could the door still open? The more she thought about it, the more desperate she was. Chapter 1825. Departure 6. Don't worry, there's always a way. Nangong Luyun's calm eyes cast a glance at Yun Luo Red Lotus. At worst, let this rotten little child swallow the entire roaming dragon's secret territory. Wouldn't that be enough to go out? Little Red Lotus suddenly shivered at the sight of Nangong Liuyun's smirk, curled up weakly in Su Luo's arms, as if there was no sense of existence, hiding motionlessly. Humph! Seeing this, Nangong Luyun sneered coldly. The Great Valley was just around the corner. God! The door is still open. Seeing the open door, Su Luo almost jumped up excitedly. She held Nangong Liuyun's hand tightly, almost crushing the bone of his hand. Nangong Luyun also felt that it was hard to believe. The gate should have been closed 9 months ago. Why is it still open now? Although the gap was only small enough for only 2 people to pass. But, hey, how come there are 2 sculptures? Su Luo's eyes were sharp, and she immediately discovered the difference. 2 sculptures sat at the center of the gate, using their bodies to prevent the gate from closing. At this time, their whole body were stiff, their hair were as white as snow, and their body were skinny. Only skin and bones remained. Not only that, the spirit power on their body were obviously depleted, only the pure physical body left. My God! After approaching, Su Luo glanced at them, only to find that they were Beichen Ing and Zi Yin. At this time, in such a scene, what else did Su Luo not understand? Beichen Ing and Zi Yin used their lives to help her and Nangong Luyun to guard the gate. Such kindness was beyond measure. Su Luo made a cry on the spot, then rushed forward like an artillery shell. There was not enough time to see more. Her body was half kneeling, directly touched their pulse, anxiously examining them. Fortunately, although it seems to be stiff, there's still a warm breath in their bodies, which was the result of eating the emperor-grade blood-clotting pill. Fortunately, she came a step earlier. If she was delayed for another hour, the 2 of them would be dead. Su Luo's heart was extremely complex. Her eyes were full of mist, which condensed into 2 hot tears. She took Beichen Ing and Zi Yin with both hands and swore solemnly, "Don't worry, I will make you recover like before. Please believe me." Even so, it was difficult to repay 1/10 of their kindness. You know, the gate of roaming dragon's secret territory only opened for 1 day, but these 2 idiots have guarded it for 9 months with their own strength. In these 9 months, every day, every hour, even every second was a great torment for their bodies. However, even though they were in such pain, they survived and made themselves look like this. Clearly, as long as they moved forward, they would be able to return to the original world without suffering. The more she thought about it, the more she was moved, and the more she felt worse. She left her friends behind and made them suffer so many grievances. Under such circumstances, who could possibly remain unmoved? Although Nangong Liuyun's face remained calm, the expression in his eyes showed concern. "Don't worry, they will be okay." Nangong Luyun sat down behind Beichen Ing and Zi Yin. His warm palms were placed on them slowly. Then, a steady stream of spirit power flowed to the back of Beichen Ing and Zi Yin's acupuncture point. Chapter 1826. Departure 7. Nangong Luyun put the spirit power into their bodies. Later, the faces of Beichen Ing and Zi Yin began to get better. In fact, before Nangong Luyun delivered the spirit power, Su Luo had already stuffed them with pills that they could use to replenish the spirit power. With the help of the spirit power and the assistance of pills, this time they pulled 2 people back from the edge of death. But even so, the 2 did not seem to be awake. What's going on? Su Luo was a little confused for a while. The coldness in their bodies is very strong. If they are not expelled as soon as possible, their lives will be in danger. Nangong Luyun's thick eyebrows frowned tightly, and a trace of worry flashed in his eyes. Because the cold had been accumulating for a long time, even he thought that it was tricky, and he couldn't help 2 people at the same time. Su Luo was even more anxious. At this moment, the little baby in Su Luo's arms suddenly moved. It suddenly opened his mouth, and 2 pure red flames shot at Beichen Ing and Zi Yan's brows respectively. The 2 flames flashed by, and by the time Su Luo reacted, they were already in their brows. "What are you doing?" Su Luo asked Little Red Lotus anxiously. But little Red Lotus stuck his tongue out, pretending to be innocent. Su Luo had to let go of it and concentrated on observing Beichen Ing and Ziyin. And in her heart, there was a hint of foreboding. The pure flame that little Red Lotus gave them was definitely not a bad thing for them. It could be said that Su Luo's premonition had always been very accurate. There was no mistake this time. When Su Luo's sight fell on Beichen Ing and Ziyin, their bodies seemed to be covered with a faint flame. Their originally cold and pale complexion gradually had a trace of warming. At this point, Nangong Luyun had already stood up. He stood with his hands on his back, his clothes fluttered, and looking at the situation in front of him, there was a complex light flashed in his eyes. They're going to be fine, aren't they? Su Luo stared at Nangong Luyun's eyes and asked seriously. Her attitude, serious with a trace of tension and anxiety. They will be fine. Nangong Luyun's words were extremely positive. And then he said with a smile, not only that, but also the flame given by the rotten little child will be of great benefit to their cultivation. It's called breaking and then standing. Beichen Ing and Ziyan's body endurance had reached the limit, and their understanding of the edge of life and death was stronger than ever. In addition, there was a coldness in their body, plus with the first fire between heaven and earth, the Yun Luo Red Lotus to temper their cultivation, it would be a wonder if their cultivation did not improve. When Nangong Luyun told Su Luo about this conclusion, Su Luo was full of disbelief. It's very good that they could wake up. As for the others, I don't hope for anything else. Nangong Luyun smiled and shook his head. Don't believe it now. I'm afraid we'll be surprised later. There's something good about this rotten little child. Thinking of this, Nangong Luyun glanced at the rotten little child. But the rotten little child, the Yun Luo Red Lotus, made a face towards the Nangong Luyun, then leaned in Su Luo's embrace, greedily ingesting the pure smell of her body. This rotten little child, Nangong Luyun sighed in anger, and really wanted to throw it away when she didn't know. Time flies. In a flash, it was 3 days. During these 3 days and 3 nights, Beichen Ing and Ziyin were completely immersed in recovering the body, and they knew nothing about what happened outside. Not long after, Beichen Ing slowly opened his cold eyes. Su Luo noticed his unusual appearance early, so when Beichen Ing opened his eyes, Su Luo just leaned down and tried to observe his appearance. So, 2 pairs of eyes were in front of each other. Oh my God! Beichen Ing was frightened by the enlarged face in front of his eyes. It's not that Su Luo looked scary, but that Beichen Ing saw his own reflection from Su Luo's crystal-clear eyes. The beggar with dirty, unkempt and messy hair was really himself? Beichen Ing could hardly accept this fact, so the whole person was stupefied. How could Su Luo, with her understanding of Beichen Ing, did not know what he was thinking now? So Su Luo kindly patted him on the shoulder. Young man, what happened? Why don't you go and wash it? Luo, Luo. Until this moment, Beichen Ing was like the soul returning to the shell. Suddenly he came back to his mind. He excitedly pulled Su Luo and was about to tell her about the sorrow after she left. But, what is this soft thing? When Beichen Ing wanted to ask questions, he was startled by the little thing in front of him. Is this your child? You even already have a child? Su Luo choked on the spot, nearly collapsed, and stared at Beichen Ing. What nonsense, isn't it? Don't tell me. You picked up a baby less than a month old from the roaming dragon's secret territory. Beichen Ying's head shook like a rattle drum, and didn't believe it at all. In the roaming dragon's secret territory, there was no one but a few of them. Could a child who was not a month old appeared out of thin air? Therefore, it was not necessary to explain. This baby was absolutely the child of Su Luo and Nangong Luyun. What else could Su Luo say about this sentence? In fact, it was really just picked up the Yun Luo Red Lotus. Thousands of words, all turned into a sigh. Beichen Ing frowned and laughed happily. He bumped Nangong Luyun's shoulder and said, Hey, I said second brother, you really are grasping this opportunity. This is really wonderful, wonderful. Beichen Ing gave a thumbs up to Nangong Luyun. But Nangong Luyun's forehead at this time was bulging. How could the rotten little child be be the seed of Nangong Luyun. If his child was so mischievous, he would have been thrown into the mountains to harm the wolves. On the surface, Nangong Luyun was very calm and collected, without waves and ripples, but his heart was constantly making complaints. At this time, the rotten little child was sticking his tongue out. Nangong Luyun almost flew over with a fist. Under Su Luo's persuasion, Beichening finally ran to wash his body, put on clean clothes, and immediately became the elegant and handsome son of nobility. Dawn. When the first rays of sunlight hit Ziyin, her cultivation came to an end. One only saw her eyes slowly opened. Eyes were so clear as if you could see the bottom, as if there were no trace of color, pure and nearly perfect. I'm not dead. This was the first thing Ziyin said after she came back to life. Do you really want to die? Su Luo knocked her angrily. Didn't she know how anxious she was because of her uncertain life and death? Of course, I don't want to die. I miss you, Luo. Ziyin did not wait for Su Luo to avoid it. She stretched her arms and held her firmly. But soon, Ziyin noticed the little thing in Su Luo's arms. Chapter 1828, Arrogant and Despotic One. This is... Ziyin was immediately surprised when she saw the little thing in Su Luo's arms. It was only a year since they were separated. There is a baby in Luo's arms. There was no one else in the roaming dragon's secret territory. Ziyin caught the key of the problem and shouted excitedly. Is he the child of you too? Su Luo's mouth drew slightly. Nangong Luyun said nothing. You think too much about it. How could this be? In Ziyin's glistening eyes, Su Luo gave a negative answer. Then, who is he? Ziyin asked incredulously. Yun Luo Red Lotus. Su Luo saw Ziyin's face was confused, and then explained. The first fire at the beginning of heaven and earth's creation, ranking the first in terms of aggression, is the only abnormal fire in heaven and earth. Ziyin was shocked by the two first in a row. Then she turned to look at the baby in Su Luo's arms. In fact, she had a hard time to associate the white and tender baby with such raging fire. But Su Luo had no choice but to believe it. Unbelievable? It was really hard to believe. Su Luo laughed, patted little Red Lotus's head, and said with a smile, if it wasn't for this little thing, we wouldn't be trapped in the flame, cave inside, and couldn't come out for a year. Then Su Luo told Ziyin about what happened before. Hearing this, Ziyin was speechless and her eyes brightened in surprise. What a thrill, so exciting. Fortunately, everything was more scared than hurt. Now I can see that you are safe and sound. Ziyin caressed her chest and marveled. Fortunately, she and Beichening didn't follow them. Otherwise, they would have died. What about you? After Su Luo finished, he asked Ziyin what happened to them. Compared to Su Luo's dangerous experiences, Ziyin and Beichening were completely safe. In the Spirit River, Nangong Luyun fight with a gigantic dragon. In the frenzied battle, the unlucky Luo Haoming was slapped to death by the dragon's paw, and he was completely dead. After Nangong Luyun killed the gigantic dragon, seeing Su Luo disappeared, he took his anger out on Liaochen and beat him to death. Then, Nangong Luyun chased Dongfang Xian. At that time, there were only Beichening and Ziyin, who were looking at each other in dismay, and there were two bodies floating in the middle of Spirit River. Beichening and Ziyin followed Nangong Luyun a long way, but Nangong Luyun's speed was too fast. Soon, they lost trace of Nangong Luyun. Later, Beichening and Ziyin came to the maze. But at this time, the little plum blossom had already followed Nangong Luyun, and the little sable was also followed Su Luo, so the huge maze had no function anymore and became an empty place. Beichening and Ziyin walked the journey effortlessly, then came all the way to the Great Valley, and then met Dongfang Xian. When talking about the encounter with Dongfang Xian, Beichening was so annoyed that he was unable to take it anymore. If I had known earlier that Dongfang Xian was so abominable, I shouldn't have let him go at that time. Ziyin also filled with indignation. Had it not been for Su Luo's good luck that defied nature, she would have died 10 or 8 times in the hands of Dongfang Xian. Dongfang Xian? Ha! Let him live for a few more days. After all, Li Yaoyao's story hasn't been exposed yet. Chapter 1829. Arrogant and despotic. Yes, at least we should let Dongfang Xian know about that thing with Li Yaoyao. Ziyin thought about it, and her smile grew wider. What thing? Bei Qining asked curiously. It's none of your business. Ziyin shoved him away angrily. But this push surprised Ziyin very much. Oh, my hand! Ziyin looked at her hands in disbelief. Why do I feel my strength getting stronger? Did you only find out just now? Su Luo pursed her lips and smiled. You try the spirit power in your body. Ziyin obediently tried the spirit in her body, and then she was dumbfounded. After a while, she looked at Su Luo and murmured, What's going on? She remembered that after soaking in the spirit river, she was promoted to the peak of 9th rank. After that, she was guarding the gate, constantly consuming her own spirit. But just now, not only she found that her spirit was overflowing in her dantian, but also found an amazing thing. She was amazingly promoted to the peak 10th rank. Just one step away to be promoted to the commander rank. What exactly is going on? Seeing Ziyin that way, Bei Qining was shocked, and then examined his own body. And then he was stunned. I am in commander. Bei Qining stared at Su Luo blankly, eyes widened in disbelief. Looking at the two lump of silly blockhead, Su Luo was secretly happy in her heart, but her face was still as serious as before and coughed, with the help of Nangong Liyun and Yun Luo Red Lotus. You were promoted to this point. It's rather too little, isn't it? This was clearly a flaunting and shrewd attitude. Ziyin and Bei Qining both stared at Su Luo. Su Luo just smiled. In order to protect this gate, you spend too much spirit power so you could understand the essence of life and death. Moreover, with the help of Nangong and Little Red Lotus, it's normal for your strength to rise. In other words, Bei Qining and Ziyin were blessed by their misfortune. Originally, they thought that guarding the gate would be exhausting both mentally and physically, also would cause death. But who knows, it's because they were so weak that the effect would be so good after Red Lotus's help, so their rank could be improved again and again. After listening to Su Luo's explanation, Bei Qining and Ziyin looked at each other and didn't know what to say. But their hearts were full of joy. At the same time, they have decided in their hearts that they must follow Su Luo's lead in the future. Looking at the door that was about to close, Su Luo was about to leave, but at this time, the voice of the little sable came to her mind. There's still good stuff that you haven't taken. What stuff? Su Luo's steps stopped immediately. A medicine that could promote people's rank, the little sable said it in a serious and cautious voice. Could promote people's rank? This was absolutely good news for Su Luo. So this medicine, Su Luo naturally would want it. But it would take another month for the herb to bear fruit. The little sable reminded again. Su Luo thought for a moment, then turned to Bei Qining and Ziyin and said, Go back first, you two. 4 of us didn't go out. Master and the other must be worried in particular. The 3 months period had already passed, and therefore lives were still uncertain. It would never be good news for their close friends. What about you? Bei Qining naturally wanted to go back sooner. Chapter 1830. Arrogant and despotic, there was a huge Beichen palace behind him. He did not return for a long time and did not know what happened in his family. But he was not at ease with Su Luo and Nangong Liyun. Don't worry, there are still some things we haven't dealt with. After that, we will go out immediately. Su Luo looked at him with a smile. After you go out, ask for more information about Dongfang Xian. Bei Qining naturally knew that Su Luo was determined to get revenge after getting out. Well, take care of yourself. Bei Qining nodded solemnly. Su Luo and Nangong Liyun were better than both of them in luck and strength. If they stay forcibly, they would not only fail to help them, but would also hinder them. So Bei Qining simply agreed. Looking at the back of Bei Qining and Ziyin leaving, Su Luo's eyes were filled with joy. There are some sincere friends in life. It seems that we are very blessed. Su Luo really didn't expect that Bei Qining and Ziyin would do this for them. Obviously, The road of life was just a short distance away. If they moved a little, they would be able to leave alive. However, the two of them obstinately guarding the door by themselves. Even though they know their chances of survival were slim. Nangong Liuyun's sight was distant, and he nodded almost invisibly. Then he leads Su Luo away with his slender and snow-white hand, and walked without looking back. They still had important things to do. In fact, if Beichening went back in this way, it was very easy to find Dongfang Xian, because Dongfang Xian was not low-key at all. At the beginning, after Dongfang Xian left the roaming dragon's secret territory, he laughed wildly. Stupid Beichening, stupid Ziyin, stupid human friendship. At the top of Bei Meng Mountain, Dongfang Xian laughed wildly regardless of the pain in his chest. There were 7 people that entered the roaming dragon's secret territory, but only he, Dongfang Xian, came out. How could Dongfang Xian not excited or arrogant? With his blatant arrogance, he came back to the bustling world. What made Dongfang Xian more and more excited was that Grandmaster Rong Yun had left early. The old men who had gathered because of the game were all left. Such result was naturally beneficial to Dongfang Xian. After he went to roaming dragon's secret territory, he was promoted to the saint rank in one swoop. Exactly like the strength of the ancestor Mo at the beginning. In the small Eastern Ling Empire, couldn't he free to do anything he wanted? Dongfang Xian was arrogant, despotic, and overbearing. He didn't return to Purgatory City, but forcibly occupied the Eastern Ling Empire. Yes, it is the 2 words, forcibly occupied. After returning to the Eastern Ling Empire, Dongfang Xian's first move was entering the Imperial Palace. He killed in the Imperial Palace of the Eastern Ling Empire 7 times with his own strength. In front of the imperial family of the Eastern Ling, Dongfang Xian, whose eyes were red and filled with hatred, said only one simple sentence. Nangong Liyun and Su Luo have died in roaming dragon's secret territory. Impossible! The emperor's eyes were red, and found it hard to believe. Dongfang Xian had killed most of the imperial family's member, but left the emperor. Because this person was his enemy, Nangong Liyun's father. How could he let him die so simply? At this time, the emperor of the Eastern Ling knelt shamefully in front of the Dongfang Xian. He was angry and sad, but he could not help but to endure the humiliation. At this time, Dongfang Xian sat on the dragon chair leisurely, sipping a cup of wine in his hand, surrounded by the beautiful women, kneading his shoulders or massaging his back, serving him comfortably. Should it be Eastern Ling or Eastern Jin? As I remember it, it should be Eastern Ling, but the author used Eastern Jin. So I use the Eastern Ling for now. Chapter 1831. Arrogant and despotic, he raised his eyes and looked down at the Emperor Jing. He smiled and taunted. Impossible? Haha, to tell you the truth, your son really died that day. I watched him die with my own eyes. Dongfang Xian's voice was gentle and soft, but his smile was sinister and horrible, which made people shiver from the bottom of their hearts. The 3 months period had passed. If Nangong Liyun did not die and managed to get out, how could he have not come yet? I already said that he's dead, but you still don't believe it. Dongfang Xian's laughter was arrogant and unbridled. The little fire of hope in Emperor Jing's heart instantly turned to ashes. Nangong Liyun is dead. Who else in the Eastern Ling Empire or in Nangong family could resist Dongfang Xian's insult? Nobody. Now, Dongfang Xian's strength had already reached the saint rank. There was no one in Nangong family dare to fight, even the old ancestor. Emperor Jing's heart was extremely desperate. Dongfang Xian leaned on the dragon chair leisurely and threw an amethyst grape in his mouth. The corner of his mouth rose maliciously. He said, "To tell you the truth, the destruction of your Nangong family is only because of a woman." Emperor Jing's heart suddenly leaped. His eyes stared at Dongfang Xian. "The name of that woman is Su Luo." Dongfang Xian said, "Impossible." The Emperor Jing didn't believe that Nangong family was destroyed because of Su Luo. Humph! Dongfang Xian coldly scoffed. If it wasn't for her, Nangong Liyun would still be my good junior brother. Would I become enemies with him? If it wasn't for her, The Nangong imperial family and the Jade Lakely family would have joined forces. Who would dare to humiliate you? If it wasn't for her, would Nangong Luyun go to the roaming dragon's secret territory? Would you die without closing your eyes? Dongfang Xian was pressing forward step by step, and Emperor Jing was retreating step by step. Your crown prince, your empress, your relatives. It's all because of Su Luo. Haha. So the death of Nangong Luyun was all caused by Su Luo. The destruction of Nangong family is all because Su Luo. So if you want to hate, you could hate that loathsome girl. Dongfang Xian stretched out his arm, grabbed Emperor Jing by the neck, and strangled him. He looked ruthless and sinister. Now you can go die. Because there was no Nangong Luyun, Emperor Jing had no value. Seeing the face of Emperor Jing turn from white to red, seeing him kicking hard, Dongfang Xian laughed proudly. Not only you next, Beichen Palace Hall's Green Jade Palace on Yef family. I'll kill them one by one. I'll kill all of them. Ha 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 ha. Beichen Palace Hall's Beichen Ying's family. Green Jade Palace, Lan Xian's family. Anya family, Anya Ming's family. They were all Nangong Liuyun's brother, so Dongfang Xian didn't want to let them go. Now, he lost reason to the extreme point. Do you want to live? Dongfang Xian stared at Emperor Jing ferociously and laughed incessantly. Emperor Jing's face was purple. Although he struggled constantly, to Dongfang Xian, his struggle was just like an ant trying to shake a big tree, which was completely useless. Emperor Jing's voice was hoarse. If you want to live, you can. Dongfang Xian pointed to the kneeling people on the ground. Kneel like them like dogs, submit to my command. Ha ha ha. In the main hall, there were several people kneeling. Among them was Su Zian, Su Luo's former father. Su Zian, come here. Dongfang Xian smiled and glanced at Su Zian. Chapter 1832. Arrogant and despotic once, Su Zian was a powerful general of the state, above 10,000 people, insufferably arrogant. At this moment he was like a dog, barking loudly. Dongfang Xian laughed happily. On one side was Nangong Liuyun's family, and on the other side was Su Luo's family, but now they were like dogs, letting him trample all over them. Nangong Luyun will not die. He will come back to avenge his father. There were anger, annoyance, humiliation, and unwillingness in the eyes of Emperor Jing. But in the end, his neck was crooked, and he died after taking his one last breath. In order not to live like Su Zian, Emperor Jing committed suicide by biting his tongue. Dongfang Xian looked at the Emperor Jing with his eyes wide open, stunned, but then, just like throwing garbage, he dropped the emperor under his feet. It was a great humiliation for the whole Nangong imperial family that the dignified emperor died, and just casually thrown like that. Su Zian looked at Emperor Jing, who died in despair, and his heart flashed with horror. But then he was excited again. Revenge! Looking at Dongfang Xian's attitude, Su Luo and Nangong Luyun are really dead. Nothing much if it's just Nangong Luyun, but Su Luo. Su Zian's eyes flashed a ferocious sneer. The loathsome girl who turned the family upside down without end for so many days. Isn't she still dead now? Come here, the Nangong family, kill them all. Dongfang Xian ordered. Suddenly, 4 figures came out behind him. These 4 figures were the subordinates of Dongfang Xian, with the strength of 10th rank. 4 people rushed in 4 directions like wolves and tigers. The fire in their hands radiated all over. The whole palace was destroyed in an instant. A lot of people did not dare to speak or to be angry. Once the imperial palace was burned down, then the reign of the Nangong imperial family would really come to an end. Just at this critical moment, 2 figures came. Stop! A loud voice came from afar. When the sound stopped, the 2 figures had shot to the palace like arrows. Beichening looked at Emperor Jing, lying on the ground with his eyes wide open. He didn't care about his identity as an emperor, but he had to pay attention to his identity as Nangong Liuyun's father. Beichening was anxious and rushed forward in 3 steps. He put his finger on Emperor Jing's nose. No breath. He's dead? Beichening was startled on the spot, then slowly got up and turned around, stared at Dongfang Xian with a death stare. Dongfang Xian saw Bei Chen with a hint of surprise. However, when he thought that Bei Chen and Zi Yin were guarding the gate at that time, he was relieved and then mocked and ridiculed him. I thought you would die for your so-called brother. But at this point of your life, aren't you still looking out for yourself? Dongfang Xian watched the Yun Luo red lotus explode. So he subconsciously thought that Nangong Luyun and Su Luo were dead without any dregs. Who told you that Nangong Luyun died? Step by step, Bei Chen slowly went up. Finally, he stood in front of Dongfang Xian, stared at him coldly, and looked at him as if he was an idiot. You have committed a crime of death, but you don't know it. Really stupid. Stupid? Dongfang Xian, who was labeled as a stupid person, became unhappy at once. He suddenly laughed wildly, as if he heard the funniest joke in the world. Stupid? Are you talking about my stupidity? Dongfang Xian stopped laughing and approached Bei Chen. His eyes were fierce and violent like vicious wolves. Good, very good, very good. Chapter 1833. Arrogant and despotic Bei Chen stared at him in disgust. But Dongfang Xian sneered. Do you want to die by yourself, or should I do it? Bei Chen was stunned. Zi Yin frowned and glared at Dongfang Xian angrily. What are you proud of? Do you really think that no one in this world could stop you? Oh, junior sister, you came out too? Dongfang Xian looked at Zi Yin and ridiculed her. Now I'll give you two choices. Dongfang Xian didn't answer Zi Yin's question, but gave Zi Yin two choices. Now he seemed to be standing high on a cloud, making clouds with one turn of the hand and rain with another. Zi Yin smiled without anger. Two choices? What choices? She would like to see what options Dongfang Xian could give. First, the same one as Bei Chen death. Oh! Zi Yin smiled and didn't answer. Second, Dongfang Xian smiled lightly and pointed at Zi Yin with his index finger. As long as you apologize to senior brother, just one sentence. For the sake of master, senior brother will let you live. Zi Yan's put her arms across her chest and sneered. So, do you think that this whole world is yours only? Dongfang Xian was unhappy with Zi Yan's attitude, because normally she should be afraid for herself. Even if she was not afraid, she should revered him. But she didn't, and she still had that damned proud smile on her face. What was she proud of? What were you laughing at? Dongfang Xian's heart burst into anger. He raised his hands, looked at the sky, and arrogantly sneered. Who could stop me in this world? This time, the most powerful one was his master, the master of Purgatory City. But his master, could it be that he would still deal with him? Grandmaster Rong Yun, as an elder, would he interfere in the younger generation's affairs? The rest, even if those old guys personally do it by themselves, what could they do? Therefore, Dongfang Xian was very arrogant. Have you forgotten, third senior brother? Zi Yan's arms were across her chest, and her face was full of sarcastic and enigmatic smile. He's dead. Dongfang Xian was incomparably confident. No, he isn't dead. Zi Yan's white index finger shook in front of Dongfang Xian's eyes. Her voice was soft and firm. Her face was still smiling gently. Dongfang Xian, immediately stunned. Not dead? Nangong Luyun is not dead? How could that be? He watched Nangong Luyun killed by the explosion with his own eyes. Ha ha! Dongfang Xian seemed to hear a wild laughter, holding his waist, as if he couldn't stand up straight. After a long time, he panted and pointed to Zi Yin. You idiot! Idiot! He saw Nangong Luyun die with his own eyes. Could it be false? The biggest idiot in the world is you, Dongfang Xian. Zi Yin sneered coldly. Anyway, third senior brother is coming back soon. Then, let's see how you will die. Unexpectedly, he dared to kill Emperor Jing, really bold. Seeing Zi Yin said the words with full of confidence, Dongfang Xian could not help but felt a little bewildered. Could it be that he really is not dead? It's impossible. Even if he didn't die, so what? Am I, Dongfang Xian, still afraid of him? Dongfang Xian sneered. He isn't dead? Very well, then, let him come and quickly save you. When his voice fell, could only see that Dongfang Xian's fingers unknowingly stretched out. Ziyan's body slowly fell to the ground. Ziyan, Bai Qinying's complexion was pale and cried out in fear. But at this time, Dongfang Xian smiled maliciously and pointed his finger to the Bai Qinying. Chapter 1834. Arrogant and despotic. Although Bai Qinying had already passed the 10th rank, how could he escape from Dongfang Xian, who was already at the saint rank? Bai Qinying's body fell slowly to the ground. There was a contempt in Dongfang Xian's eyes. Nangong Luyan is not dead? That was absolutely impossible. Dongfang Xian looked at Ziyan and Bai Qinying, and the contempt in his eyes grew more and more intense. He remembered that Nangong Luyan had a few good brothers, for example, the Green Jade Palace Lan Xian's family, Anya family, Anya Ming's family. So, why not catch them all? Thinking of this, Dongfang Xian was full of pride. Something called exaltation grew in his heart. He had a kind of power in his hands, which they could not resist. The happiest thing was when he looked back. There, a slender but big-bellied figure stood upright. His Yao Yao. Why are you here? Dongfang Xian quickly stepped up and lovingly supporting Li Yao Yao's swaying body. Li Yao Yao held her waist and leaned to Dongfang Xian. Almost all her strength lied on Dongfang Xian's chest. Her gaze swept across the ground. In fact, she came early in the morning and she saw all the scenes here. She watched Emperor Jing kill himself and watched Ziyan and Bai Qinying fell to the ground unconscious. After everything was over, she came out from behind the screen with an innocent and confused expression on her face. Senior brother, what are you going to do with Ziyan? Li Yao Yao raised her clear black and white eyes with a beautiful and pitiful face. Silly girl, do you still want to plead for her? Do you remember how she joined up with Su Luo to treat you? You don't have to worry about these things. Just give birth to our child. Dongfang Xian gently stroked Li Yao Yao's huge belly. Here was his, Dongfang Xian's descendant. Soon they would be able to meet each other. Thinking of this, for the first time, a touch of sincere tenderness emerged from Dongfang Xian's face. The moment when Li Yao Yao lowered her head, she just happened to see Dongfang Xian's tenderness. This moment, Li Yao Yao's heart trembled suddenly. A feeling called fear gripped her chest so hard that she could hardly breathe. Because of Ziyan, Li Yao Yao looked at Ziyan, and the anger in her eyes burst out. Because Ziyan's existence reminded her of that humiliating night. Although she wasn't sure whether Ziyan knew that she was humiliated by a beggar, or whether she knew that she was not pregnant with Dongfang Xian's child, she would rather kill by mistake than let it go. So Ziyan must die. Li Yao Yao grasped Dongfang Xian's hand tightly. Her fingers was slightly trembled. What's the matter? Is it uncomfortable? Dongfang Xian asked nervously and with concern. Now in this world, only Li Yao Yao and her baby could affect him. Li Yao Yao's mind was running fast. She tried to come up with a good reason to dispose Ziyan, but didn't know if Ziyan was lucky. Li Yao Yao hadn't come up with a reason yet, but there was a wave of severe pain in her abdomen. Li Yao Yao held her huge abdomen, took a breath of cold air, and the pain almost made her pass out. Chapter 1835. Arrogant and despotic Dongfang Xian's eyes were glued tightly to Li Yao Yao. Seeing her pale face, he princess carried her in his arms and walked out quickly. You're going to give birth. Ziyan. Li Yao Yao's face was pale because of the pain, but she still thought about how to deal with Ziyan. Because only in this way that the secret of this baby could be kept forever. The Jade Lakely family could not afford to start provoking the current Dongfang Xian. However, Li Yao Yao felt a little uneasy in her heart. Previously, when she sorted out her emotions and sent people to search for the beggar all over the city, attempting to kill the beggar, she found that the beggar could no longer be found. The beggar disappeared out of thin air. This left Li Yao Yao's heart hanging at all times, and she was always worried that the beggar would suddenly pop up. So when she saw Ziyan now, she immediately had the idea of killing her to prevent her from divulging the secret. Now Dongfang Xian was in the saint rank. Not only does she had to look up to him, but her father also had to. Even her grandfather dare not say a word to Dongfang Xian. In the face of absolute strength, all worldly superiority and inferiority were paper tigers. Li Yaoyao wanted to say something more, but Dongfang Xian reached out and pressed her acupuncture point. Then he said, "Take a good rest. Then you can have enough energy to give birth to the baby." The baby could have been born long ago, but even after almost a year since she conceived, Li Yaoyao still refused to give birth, so Dongfang Xian couldn't help but worrying about it. As a result, poor Li Yaoyao could only temporarily lose consciousness. Soon, the whole Jade Lake Li's family was in the courtyard of the imperial capital, which was in the state of turmoil and chaos. Not long ago, a wrinkled and extremely ugly little baby was picked up by the midwife and sent to Dongfang Xian. "So ugly." Dongfang Xian frowned and commented. The midwife's heart suddenly trembled. Such a beautiful mother and such a handsome husband. The baby looked really ugly. But how could the midwife say this? She didn't want to die yet, so she could only smile and say, "The newborn baby is just like this, and it will be white and clean again in a few months." "Is that so?" Dongfang Xian held the little thing in his arms and frowned more and more tightly. He looked up and down, but found that none of the little baby was like himself. He couldn't help but look more and more disappointed. Finally, he gave the little baby to Li Yaoyao. Li Yaoyao's cultivation had been crippled and was no different from ordinary people, so just after giving birth, she was weak and could faint at any time. Ziyin, for a long time, Li Yaoyao finally thought of an excuse. But Dongfang Xian's eyebrows were tightly wrinkled. He thought that the kind-hearted Jade Lake Fairy wanted to plead for Ziyin, so he waved his hand and said in a cold voice, "Don't plead for that loathsome girl. I'll have my own explanation to master. Just take care of your body." Then he looked at the wrinkled little thing again, and suddenly his mood became worse. He left a faint sentence. "I have important matters to attend to, so you have to take more care at home." Then Dongfang Xian left. This was no excuse. Anya family, Green Jade Palace, Beichen Palace Halls. He wouldn't let anyone off. Looking at Dongfang Xian's figure leaving, Li Yaoyao was so angry that she gritted her teeth secretly. Just where was she pleading for Ziyin? How could she plead for Ziyin? However, Dongfang Xian never let her interfere in his affairs. She didn't even know where Ziyin was being held. Chapter 1836. Arrogant and despotic Li Yaoyao had no choice but to be angry, because now she was a useless person and couldn't get involved in the situation at all. Time went by. During that time, Dongfang Xian came back every once in a while. Every time he came back, he didn't come back empty-handed. In the dungeon, Bei Chening had long been awake. Watching his brothers gather together, Bei Chening really didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Old third, old fourth, why are you two got caught?" Bei Chening leaned on the iron bar and took a straw into his mouth, joking. "Aren't you got caught too?" Lan Xian smiled at the Bei Chening. Young people do not know how to feel worried. Even if they were detained, there was not much anxiety in their hearts. The night was calmer. He frowned, looking at Bei Chening. "When will second brother come back?" Dongfang Xian said that the second brother is dead, and at first, An Ming was skeptical. But now, seeing the careless appearance of Bei Chening, his heart was completely set down. Second brother ought to return when it's time to return, Bei Chening said with a smile. In fact, he didn't know when they would come back, but it was certain that Dongfang Xian's good days would not be long. There was a joy in the dungeon. Not far away, Dongfang Xian's brow frowned slightly. Would Nangong Luyun really return? The earth-shattering explosion that emerged in Dongfang Xian's mind made him reject this idea again. Impossible. What he saw with his own eyes. Could there be false? That power, not to mention Nangong Luyun, even Grandmaster Rong Yun may not be able to protect his life? But why was Bei Chening so determined? Dongfang Xian was tangled. Li Yaoyao stood quietly behind Dongfang Xian. "Senior brother." Li Yaoyao's face looked cold. "These people, are they still useful to keep?" Looking at the ghost like Li Yao Yao, Dongfang Xian's brows were slightly knitted. It's useless. Dongfang Xian suddenly had a feeling of being invincible in this world. No opponent was the loneliest. If Nangong Luyan's still alive, it was not so bad. At least he had an opponent. A bunch of useless waste. Dongfang Xian said. The Anya family, Beichen Palace Halls, and Green Jade Palace would all be killed by him. No one could do anything about it. To catch these people alive was nothing but to insult. Then, kill them, will you? Li Yaoyao's pitiful eyes stared at Dongfang Xian. Dongfang Xian's heart was not moved. Why? Dongfang Xian asked curiously. Li Yaoyao had already made up an excuse. First senior brother, the others are all right, but Ziyan, she is so young, but her strength is already at the peak of 10th rank. So awfully talented, isn't she? Has first senior brother reached 10th rank at Ziyan's age? That sentence was like the last straw on the camel's back, instantly occupied the winning end of the balance. Dongfang Xian, at Ziyan's age, really couldn't reach her current strength. Dongfang Xian's eyes quickly flashed a hint of envy. Li Yaoyao could see clearly, and she felt proud. She knew Dongfang Xian and what he hated most. He hated people that were more talented than him. Well, since Yao Yao don't want them to live, then kill them all. Ha ha! Dongfang Xian hugged Li Yao Yao's slender waist, pointed to the prison, and ordered in a cold voice, "Give them a meal tonight, and then kill them all on tomorrow afternoon." Chapter 1837. Arrogant and despotic Dongfang Xian intentionally spoke loudly for them to hear, because he wanted to make them crumble, frightened, and felt dread. Knowing their own death, they couldn't do anything but wait for the time to come. Such fear was enough to break even the top expert. Dongfang Xian, on the other hand, enjoyed watching others crumbled. As soon as Dongfang Xian's words came out, the sound in the dungeon suddenly stopped. Dongfang Xian was very satisfied with the effect he created. Then he hugged Li Yao Yao's slim waist and went away while wildly laughing. In the dungeon, the brothers looked at each other in dismay. It's a big problem now, An Yiming frowned. He could feel that Dongfang Xian was really serious this time. Beichening drew his own mouth. I blame my damned mouth for provoking Dongfang Xian. Now the brothers were not Dongfang Xian's opponents. Only Nangong Luyun could defeat him. Although everyone knew that Nangong Luyun is not dead, he and Su Luo temporarily stayed in Roaming Dragon's secret territory, and heaven knows when they would come back. When they returned, the brothers would have been cut into pieces by Dongfang Xian and dried in the sun. What to do? Lan Xian's face was slightly pale. It seemed that we could do nothing but wait for death. Ziyan's voice came lazily from the corner. Li Yaoyao hated her to death. She poisoned all her food. Fortunately, she had some dried food hidden in her body, otherwise her life would have been long gone. For a while, the dungeon was quiet. That night, the food was amazing. The brothers were carelessly cleaning up the sumptuous last meal. Time passed quickly, and the morning light of the next day slowly rose. However, Nangong Luyun still hadn't come. Before noon, Dongfang Xian sat comfortably on the broad chair, squinting his eyes, watching the young people standing in front of him. Bei Chening, An Yiming, Lan Xian, Ziyan, Dongfang Xian pointed one by one, with a sneer on the corner of his mouth. Now you have two choices. Ziyan's sarcastic eyes fell on Dongfang Xian's face. But Dongfang Xian didn't seem to see it. He sneered and said, 1 death, 2 life. How is death? And how is life? An Yiming's face was calm, and with the tone unchanged. Death is very simple. You don't have to do anything. Just wait for death. As for living, Dongfang Xian's lips was smiling. It's also very simple. As long as the last person of the 4 of you is left, that last person standing could be alive, Dongfang Xian promised. Dongfang Xian finally patted himself on the chest and made a promise. What a vicious Dongfang Xian. Bei Chening hated him in his heart. This was gaining victory with unstained sword. Let them have internal strife. Only Dongfang Xian could think of such a vicious method. How is it? Want to live or not? If you want to live, then let's start. Dongfang Xian was very pleased for coming up with this wonderful method. He just liked to watch them fight each other. That is to say, Nangong Liyun's so-called brothers would fight each other like dogs in order to survive. It would bring him countless pleasures. At Dongfang Xian's commanded, a cold sword was distributed to the four of them. Bai Qining took over the cold sword first. Anya Ming hesitated, and then followed him. Chapter 1838. Arrogant and despotic Lan Xian was almost angry, but under the gaze of Bai Qining and Anya Ming, he also angrily picked up. Finally, a cold sword was brought to Ziyin. Ziyin looked at the cold sword, and she raised it toward her throat. Well, now the weapons are already in your hands. Now you can decide the outcome. Ha ha. The more Dongfang Xian thought about it, the more excited he became, the more he wanted to applaud for his brilliant idea. This moment was the happiest moment for him after leaving the roaming dragon's secret territory. Even when Li Yaoyao gave birth to a son for him, had not make him this happy. Time goes by. Bai Qining held the cold sword in his hands, and the sweat on his forehead rolled down slowly. It was almost noon, and Nangong Luyun still had not come. If you still don't fight in a stick of an incense time, you'll all be killed. Dongfang Xian's patience was limited. It was impossible for him to let them delay time indefinitely. What are you waiting for? Don't tell me you're waiting for Nangong Luyun. Why don't you believe it? I really watched him die with my own eyes. The blood was like a fountain. It sprayed all over the place. It was gorgeous. Dongfang Xian described it with joy. Hey, don't you want to kill me for revenge? But in this case, none of the four of you could survive. Young people, don't be so impulsive in doing things. Dongfang Xian said with a smile. At this time, he was the king. He laughed if he wanted to laugh, scold if he wanted to scold, and if he wanted them to die, then they could only die. This was the world that respects strength. Kill Dongfang Xian? Bai Qining slowly shook his head and denied the idea. Although what he wanted to do most was to kill Dongfang Xian, it was clear that this was impossible, because he was the strongest among the four of them. But he only just entered the commander rank. Ziyin was at the peak 10th rank. Anya Ming and Lan Xian was only at 9th rank. The difference in strength was too much. So, now the only way was, let one of them live. At this moment, Bai Qining, Anya Ming, and Lan Xian slowly nodded in secret. Then, they held the cold sword and suddenly they stabbed at their own chests. Second brother, take revenge for us. The three voices were sonorous, powerful, and unyielding. Don't! Ziyin exclaimed. Tears were rolling down, although she guessed their thoughts. Now that it was confirmed, Ziyin was still shocked until she almost fainted. The three of them actually chose to commit suicide and gave her the hope of living. However, Ziyin's exclamation was too late. 3 sharp swords stabbed into their hearts. The 3 figures slowly fell backwards. Ziyin only had time to hold Bai Qining. No, no, no. Ziyin's tears rolled down, and she almost breaking down. How could they do this? How could they left the last hope of living to her so cruelly when she was not ready? How could she live alone in the future? Good girl, don't cry. The blood slowly flowed from the corner of Bai Qingying's mouth. But he had a bright smile on his face, just like a young man who smiled when the sun faded. How can it be like this? How can it be? Ziyin only repeated this sentence over and over again. Silly girl, live a good life for our brothers. Live? And, I'm sorry, although Bai Qining was smiling, but his forehead was dripping with cold sweat. Chapter 1839. Arrogant and despotic the heart was pierced by a sharp sword, but he could still persevered and hadn't take his last breath. Only a strong man like him could do it. How could Ziyin not understand Bai Qinying's words? He wanted her to live, no matter how hard, no matter how humiliating, to wait for Nangong Liuyun's return, which would be the day of Dongfang Xian's death. If she died, she would die, but if she lived, she would suffer the humiliation from Dongfang Xian and Li Yao Yao. So he said sorry to her. And Bai Chen-ying's chest heaved violently. He knew that if he didn't say something, he would never have a chance in this life. And I love you. Suddenly, Bai Chen-ying gathered all his spirit power and told her these 3 words. These words lingered in his heart for a long time. He had always known that Ziyin liked him, but he pretended not to know because of Luo Luo. But in fact, he had long willing to give up on the hopeless love and unknowingly left his heart to Ziyin. I love you too. I love you too. Don't leave me. Beichen, since you love me, then don't leave me. Ziyin cried like a helpless child. She kept shaking Bai Chen-ying, trying to wake him up, but no matter how she shook him, Bai Chen-ying still closed his eyes tightly. She held his hand, but couldn't feel his pulse. No, it's not true. It's not true. At this moment, Ziyin's mind was crumbling, completely blank. In fact, this result also shocked Dongfang Xian. Dongfang Xian sat in his chair, shocked by the scene in front of him. He asked them to fight internally for the only chance of survival. He wanted to prove that in the face of death, the so-called brothers' loyalty was worthless, and whoever talked about loyalty was a fool. But the reality slapped him hard. He never expected that he would find such a dramatic change. He guessed the ending but couldn't imagine the process at all. So firmly, resolutely, stabbed neatly into their chest with a sharp sword, without even frowning. Brothers that did not born in the same day, month, and year, but die in the same month of the same year. Such determination to die really shocked Dongfang Xian. It's impossible, impossible. How could that be? At the same time, Dongfang Xian was incredibly jealous of Nangong Luoyuan, because he had such a group of brothers who trust him wholeheartedly and died fervently for him without even frowning. But what brother did he have? He was alone, not even a close friend. Ha 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 dash. Suddenly, Dongfang Xian stood up, looked up to the sky, and laughed. So, what even if Nangong Luoyuan have these brothers? Weren't they all dead now? Not only his brother died, but Nangong Luoyuan also died early. Do these people still expect that Nangong Luoyuan would revenge for them? It was pleasing that they still think like that. In this life, this was absolutely impossible to happen. Just when Dongfang Xian was elated, suddenly, a whistling sound came from afar. But in a blink of an eye, the 2 figures flashed like meteors and fell to the ground. These 2 people were not others. They were Su Luo and Nangong Luoyuan, whom Dongfang Xian thought were dead. Su Luo looked at the scene in front of her, and she was so shocked that she almost forgot to breathe, and then boundless anger rushed up. Chapter 1840, Thunderous Battle 1, Luo Luo. As soon as Ziyin saw Su Luo, whose eyes were misty with tears, she immediately shouted like a drowning man who saw a driftwood. It's important to save people. Su Luo didn't have time to say more. She quickly took out the life-saving pill given by her master and put it into the 3 people's mouths. Later, Su Luo held the sword in Bai Chen-ying's heart with both hands. Ziyin looked at her in tears. The cold sword was pulled out. Blood was gushing. Is this really okay? Ziyin was worried and anxious. Her eyes were nervously staring at Su Luo. At this time, Su Luo had no time to explain anything to her because every minute and every second were now crucial. Perhaps a delay of 1 second would cost a human life. Su Luo held the hilt of the sword and pulled it out inch by inch. Su Luo's hand held the handle of the sword and pulled out the sword body inch by inch. The speed was not fast, but it was stable and there was no tremor. As the cold sword was pulled out, Su Luo had already cut her wrist with a dagger before the blood gushed out. A bright red blood spilled on the wound. The blood that had not flowed out of Bai Chen-ying was immediately suppressed. The big wound was healing at a rate visible to the naked eye. The wound on Su Luo's wrist naturally healed. Seeing this, Su Luo couldn't help but sighed. Fortunately, at that time, she went to Xianwood residence to obtain the Scarlet Blood Ningpo figwort and got the blood of this body. Otherwise, today she may not be able to save Beichening. How is it? Can he be saved? Beichening? She was concerned and confused, and Ziyin, who had always been calm, seemed to be out of her wits. Su Luo's hand was on Beichening's body. Every time, there was a trace of invisible current. Ziyin felt dazzled. Her vision was blurred for a while. Soon, Su Luo stopped her fast hand. There were more than 200 acupoints and more than 1,000 ashi points in the human body. Within a few seconds, Su Luo was done. How fast was her speed? This was no longer be able to write with ink. I have a pulse. Su Luo stood up and gave Beichening to Ziyin. Her task was not light, because there were 2 lives waiting to be saved. Anya Ming and Lan Xian were her friends. She liked these youngsters, and she didn't want Nangong Luyuan to regret in the future. Before she could think much about it, Su Luo had already undertaken the task. It was a blood treatment, and its electric current flowing through more than 1,000 acupoints. Although it was only a few seconds, it was just because the speed was too fast, so Su Luo's spirit power was consumed too quickly. Anya Ming's injury was quickly dealt with. Like Beichening, Anya Ming also regained his breath. At this time, there was only Lan Xian left, but now Su Luo was obviously a little bit slower. At this time, her smooth forehead was covered with a fine layer of sweat, which condensed into beads and rolled down. Her face, pale and bloodless, was obviously overwhelmed. It was not so easy to snatch life from the hand of God of Death, let alone Su Luo, who had snatched 2 lives in a row. Luo, Ziyin was in difficulty. While worrying about Su Luo, she was also worried about Lan Xian. That scene just now brought her incomparable shock. She was deeply realized of the true meaning of the words, brothers live and die together. Don't worry, I'm fine. Su Luo nodded to Ziyin, and then went to rescue Lan Xian wholeheartedly. Because of the long delay, Lan Xian was the most difficult to treat of the 3. When Su Luo came into contact with Lan Xian's body, the soul in his body had escaped disorderly. Chapter 1841. Thunderous Battle 2. However, Su Luo used her hands to forcibly change something rotten into something magical and put the escaping soul back to the original place. But the price was heavy. Su Luo was spitting out a mouthful of blood. Luo. Ziyin was anxious. Su Luo waved her hand to indicate that she was fine, and then concentrate her attention completely on opening up the acupoints in Lan Xian's body. Because previously, Lan Xian was already dead, his whole body's acupoints and meridians were all closed, so she had to open them one by one. Originally, it was possible for Nangong Luyuan to do this, but now Nangong Luyuan couldn't do it. Because now, he was fighting with Dongfang Xian. In Lan Xian's body, there was only around 100 acupoints that had been opened. Just at this time, suddenly, there was a strong wind attacking the back of Su Luo's head. It was incredibly fast. Su Luo could have avoided it, but she must not have avoided it, because if she avoided it, the strong wind would take a solid hit on Lan Xian's body. A life that was snatched with great difficulty from the hand of God of Death would immediately fly away, scatter, and die. Even if Su Luo's master was able to come, there was nothing that could be done. So, not only Su Luo could not avoid it, she had to block it in front of Lan Xian. Bang! There was a violent sound. Su Luo's body, which was protected by space gravity, suddenly swayed and spitting out 3 mouthfuls of blood in a row. At this time, the person who caused this had stopped. This was a middle-aged man. At this time, his cold eyes was staring at Su Luo, which was giving people a feeling of arrogance. Father! A surprised voice came from behind. This was Li Yaoyao's voice. So, that was Li Yaoyao's father, the current master of the Jade Lake Palace. The Li family? Su Luo tried to hold back the pain in her chest, and her hands were still steadily connected to the other acupoints on Lan Xian's body. After that, she handed Lan Xian over to Ziyin. Then, Su Luo slowly stood up and looked at the head of Li family coldly. Li Yaoyao's father, Su Luo, had met before. At that time, Li Yaoyuan was one of the people who planned to rob her when he just came out of the Xianwood residence. Li Yaoyuan stared at Su Luo. Li Yaoyuan was surprised that the girl could withstand the move he was most proud of. Su Luo knew that with her strength, if she fight alone with Li Yaoyuan, the chance of winning was too low. Then, only by disturbing his mind and influencing their emotions could she have a chance to win. At this point, Su Luo's mouth was slightly hooked. The smile on her face was as gorgeous as summer flowers. The master of Li family is very interesting, Su Luo smiled faintly. Li Yaoyuan frowned. It felt that Su Luo indirectly implied something from what she said. Father, don't talk to her. She's always scheming something. I don't know what kind of damnable plan she has. Li Yaoyao urged loudly. It had to be said that the person who knew you best was not your friend, but your enemy. Li Yaoyao was actually right. But obviously, Li Yaoyuan didn't know Su Luo that well. Before he made a move, Su Luo's voice was heard from afar. The Jade Lakely family's descendants has already died or broken. Li Yaoyao, do you still have the mood to sow dissension here? The 4 words died or broken descendants was too wounding, even more for a super influential family like them. Li Yaoyuan's face suddenly changed. When Dongfang Xin came out, he said Li Yaochen was fine. Li Yaochen did not die. Chapter 1842, Thunderous Battle 3. What do you mean? Make it clear. Li Yaoyuan's hands were like an eagle. He tried to grab Su Luo ruthlessly. But could Su Luo be caught by him so quickly? Her figure flashed quickly to dodge. Li Yaochen died. He was personally killed by Dongfang Xin himself. We all see it with our own eyes. Su Luo was lying without batting an eye. Not far away, Dongfang Xin was fully absorbed in fighting with Nangong Luoyun in midair. What did you mean Li Yaochen was killed by him? By personally? That was absolute nonsense. Dongfang Xin wanted to refute, but in this moment, Nangong Luoyun's attack suddenly intensified, like a raging wind and a heavy rain. Dongfang Xin did not even dare to say a word. So, how could he dare to be distracted and refute? You see, Dongfang Xin didn't even refute. He has already acquiesced. Su Luo pointed at Dongfang Xin in midair with a smile. Now, she would let Dongfang Xin have a taste of what even 100 mouths wouldn't be able to absolve one's guilt. Li Yaoyuan suddenly moved. Nonsense. How can he harm Li Yaochen with the relationship between first senior brother and the Jade Lakely family? Su Luo, why do you have to sow dissension? Who will believe you? When Li Yaoyao saw Li Yaoyuan stopped, she was anxious. What she was most afraid of was if Su Luo were to tell the story of the beggar. Su Luo naturally knew that Li Yaoyuan was not so easy to convince, so she added oil and vinegar. We found a lot of source stones in the roaming dragon's secret territory. Li Yaochen's plot of land was especially lucky. There were at least hundreds of purple crystals. Do you think Dongfang Xin would not be jealous? Dongfang Xin was neither good nor virtuous man. It would be strange if he didn't get jealous. Li Yaoyuan's heart was increased from 1 point to 3. Dongfang Xin in midair was half dead. However, he could not refute a word. Li Yaochen, is he really dead? Li Yaoyuan stared unwaveringly at Su Luo. He's really dead. There is no corpse. The corpse turned into ashes. Su Luo said with a smile. Although she didn't see it with her own eyes, Nangong Luoyun already told her. Li Yaochen is also dead, isn't he? Li Yaoyuan's face became more malevolent. Back then, Li Yaochen disappeared on that island. The Jade Lakely family had been looking for him for several years, but not a hair was found, let alone a person. Yes, Li Yaochen is dead, but I killed him. What I did will not be falsely accused to others. Su Luo simply admitted. The effect she wanted was to disturb Li Yaoyuan's mind. Looking at the trembling master of Li family, Su Luo knew that her plan was half completed. As for Li Yaoqiong, after the last incident, it seemed inhumane, wasn't it? Su Luo shook her finger with a grin. Speaking of it, Can it be that it might be inherited in your Jade Lakely family? Li Yaoxiang also has this problem. How could Li Yaoyuan respond to such a great insult? Loathsome girl, accept death. Li Yaoyuan shouted. Li Yaoyuan's heart was in disorder. There was an endless stream of anger. It had to be said that he was already at a disadvantage. Su Luo sneered at the corner of her mouth. The master of Jade Lakely family was now in the commander rank. Although she was somewhat inferior in strength, it was not impossible to fight against him. This battle, Su Luo wanted to fight it herself without hesitation. Yun Luo Red Lotus came up to see the excitement, but was pushed back by Su Luo. This was her own fight. She didn't want to use the hand of others. Chapter 1843. Thunderous Battle. For, as the master of the Jade Lakely family, Li Yaoyuan's strength was not ordinary. In addition, in the past 2 years, he had devoted himself to cultivation, and his accomplishments had went up to a new level. Although Su Luo had a lot of opportunities along the way, because of her young age, therefore she's still losing out a little compared to him. So the two people fight, but could not determine the victory or defeat. However, Su Luo was continuously in the disadvantageous position. The battle between Nangong Luoyun and Dongfang Xian was coming to an end. How could Dongfang Xian compare with Nangong Luoyun in his peak condition? What's more, the current Nangong Luoyun was full of anger. It was thunderous and merciless. It was cruel like the Azura from hell. Although Su Luo was suppressed, she did not panic, because she knew that Nangong Luoyun would win. After Nangong Luoyun dealt with Dongfang Xian, where would the master of Jade Lakely family be able to jump? All she had to do was wait for Nangong Luoyun. Su Luo thought so, but just as Nangong Luoyun released a big move towards Dongfang Xian suddenly, a figure rushed out rapidly, standing in front of Dongfang Xian like a towering mountain, and fought against him forcefully. This was a thin old man. His appearance was all white, but with the white hair and the excellent spirit, at first sight, he was like a super strong person. Grandpa! Li Yaoyao stepped forward and shouted excitedly. Previously, seeing that Dongfang Xian nearly lost, Li Yaoyao's heart was mixed with all sorts of flavor, sour and astringent. On one hand, seeing the powerful strength of Nangong Luoyun, she felt thousands of feelings in her heart, and her hidden feelings revived again. On the other hand, she thought of what would happen to her Jade Lakely family if Dongfang Xian were to lose. After all, Dongfang Xian really killed Emperor Jing. In this complicated mood, the elder of the Jade Lakely family appeared. Elderly stood quietly. His eyes were cold and fierce, staring at Nangong Luoyun. That move, Nangong Luoyun used 10% of his strength, but it was easily blocked by him. It could be seen that the strength of the elder in front of him was unfathomable. Boy, in just a few short years, I didn't expect you to grow up to this degree. Elder Li's aquiline nose shook, and there was a trace of regret in his eyes. Although at that time I was optimistic about you, I still underestimated you after all. If he had intervened at that time, the marriage between Li Yaoyao and Nangong Luoyun wouldn't have changed. He was the son-in-law of the Jade Lakely family. Nangong Luoyun smiled faintly. His smile was dim, and his voice was cold. So, thank you for your underestimation. Elderly looked at the imperial palace behind him and sighed. If at that time Nangong family and Jade Lakely family were connected by marriage, it wouldn't have reached this point. The implication was the current condition of Nangong family was their own fault. Nangong Luoyun was very angry in his heart, but his face still cold. Only a chill appeared at the bottom of his eyes. The elder though he too highly of the Jade Lakely family. The corner of Nangong Luoyun's mouth evoked an evil but enchanting smile. Only people that were close to Nangong Luoyun would know that when a smile like this appeared, it was bound to see blood. But Elderly seemed to have no fear of this young man, still sighing quietly, as if he was regretting, and as if he felt that it was a pity. Chapter 1844. thunderous battle. It's a pity that such a young genius like you would die." Elder Li's eyes were filled with regret. After a pause, he looked at Li Yao Yao, who was looking with expectation. Finally, he asked, "If I had asked personally, would the Jade Lakely family and Nangong family be able to be connected by marriage?" The elder wanted to know that if he had been determined to intervene, Nangong Luyun would still dare, or not to abandon Li Yao Yao and got together with a nobody like Su Luo. Hearing this, Nangong Luyun's handsome face was brimming with smile, but his smile was full of ridicule. Marriage? Could it be that the elder did not know that Nangong Luyun's next goal was to remove the name of the Jade Lakely family from the top 10 families? In public, domineering, and every word was powerful and resonating. This was the voice of Nangong Luyun. In the face of the elder ancestor, he taunted, ridiculed, and he never compromised. That sentence really annoyed Elder Li. In fact, it was also the elder's own fault. In the face of the current Nangong Luyun, he still took the previous attitude of treating a younger generation. It'd be a wonder if he didn't get insulted. Well, the young man's wings have grown strong, and he wants to fly alone. Let this elder see how strong your wings now. Elder Li scoffed coldly, and then immediately taking initiative by striking first. In fact, he knew very well that Nangong Luyun's current strength was not much weaker than him. After Elder Li's insinuations, Dongfang Xian, who had been beaten down, could take a breath for a while, and like a rekindled flame. Nangong Luyun and Elder Li were fighting in midair. Dongfang Xian saw that they were of equal strength. He wanted to go up to mount a sneak attack, but when his eyes were sweeping over Su Luo, a cold smile crossed his eyes. A sneak attack on Nangong Luyun was certainly possible, but Elder Li was not losing out, so he couldn't rashly went up for nothing. Then, let's kill Su Luo. Moreover, Dongfang Xian was very clear that Nangong Luyun was an iron bone. Only Su Luo was his weakness and his reverse scale. The corner of Dongfang Xian's lips evoked an evil smile. He would like to see how much pain he would suffer when he killed Nangong Luyun's weak spot. Moreover, compared with Nangong Luyun, Dong Xian's most hated person was actually Su Luo. That loathsome girl made his life only had 10 years left. Dongfang Xian thought so, then silently approached Su Luo. His strength was in the saint rank. What's the difficulty of mounting a sneak attack on a girl whose strength was only at the peak of 10th rank? What's more, now Su Luo had no warning and reminder from Little Stone, and her vigilance had decreased 1 point or 2. It wasn't until Dongfang Xian was only 10 meters away from Su Luo that she suddenly realized it. Dongfang Xian hit Su Luo with Icebound Earth. How could Su Luo escape the deadly strike of a saint rank? Seeing that Dongfang Xian released a big move, Li Yaoyuan's heart was moved. A sneer flashed at the corner of his mouth, and then quickly retreated. Because Li Yaoyuan was convinced that even he wouldn't be able to bear this move, so Su Luo would surely die. In the air, Dongfang Xian and Li Yaoyuan smiled at each other. Their smiles were sly and proud. Dongfang Xian's eyes looked towards Nangong Luyun. Just now he deliberately made a loud noise to make Nangong Luyun distracted by Su Luo's crisis. The big move. Every second counts. A difference of 1 second could determine the winner. Dongfang Xian didn't believe that in the face of Su Luo's critical moments, Nangong Luyun wouldn't be distracted. Chapter 1845, Thunderous Battle. So he waited to watch a good play, waiting for Nangong Luyun to be distracted and seriously injured by Elder Li. But to Dongfang Xian's disbelief, this time, the facts turned out to be unexpected. Nangong Luyun was really indifferent, but the speed of his move was obviously faster. Nangong Luyun, you are so cruel. You can even watch Su Luo die. Dongfang Xian's words were full of provocation. Nangong Luyun shot at Dongfang Xian with a wind blade. Dongfang Xian's heart was almost pierced, and he only injured his arm when he dodged in a hurry. Dongfang Xian was anxious, and he planned to find Su Luo's body to provoke Nangong Luoyuan. How can? Li Yuan's voice cried out. Dongfang Xian followed Li Yaoyuan's voice. Damn! Dongfang Xian, who had always been focusing on cultivation, burst out a swear word. Su Luo, who was unanimously believed to be dead by Dongfang Xian and Li Yaoyuan, even stood there in the same place with a smile, unscathed. One only saw her slender arms encircled her slender body. Her beautiful face was now looking at them with a smile. Dongfang Xian just felt his head was confused. That icebound earth just now did not cause any harm to her? This was absolutely impossible. You know, he was on the Saint rank. With the strong attack of Saint rank, Su Luo was actually unscathed. In the end, where was the problem? Dongfang Xian was in disbelief. The solution was simple. He was not asking Su Luo, because he knew that he would have asked for nothing, but he would only be satirized by Su Luo. So, he went directly to make another move, the icebound world. The icebound world was fiercer than the icebound earth. But in the face of a strong attack, Su Luo's mouth actually evoked a strange smile. If I can't kill you this time, I'll write the name of Dongfang Xian backwards. Dongfang Xian was full of confidence and made a solemn oath. Good. Su Luo smiled lightly. If it was another attack, she really couldn't help it, but if it was water attribute and ice attribute, then the other party really court death. Didn't Dongfang Xian know that she had the first fireborn in the beginning of heaven and earth's creation? Su Luo stood still. But behind her, a fiery red lotus flower suddenly appeared, and the lotus flower grew rapidly, and finally wrapped Su Luo completely. When the icebound world of Dongfang Xian hit, there was only a loud noise heard. Then, the power of ice and snow gradually disintegrated. The Yun Luo red lotus retreated, and Su Luo's body reappeared. The place was messy, but Su Luo was still unscathed. That was the power of the Yun Luo red lotus. That's, Dongfang Xian's voice was trembling, and there was a trace of panic, but it was more angry and jealous. You already knew that. Su Luo only gave him 4 light words. Yun Luo red lotus. That was the Yun Luo red lotus. You conquered the Yun Luo red lotus. Dongfang Xian was so angry that he almost screamed. How could that be? At first, Su Luo and Nangong Luoyuan were imprisoned by his blood sacrifice. At that time, he went to collect the Yun Luo red lotus, but the Yun Luo red lotus did not pay any attention to him. For the sake of his life, he retreated. At that time, Yun Luo red lotus was so close to him, just within his reach, but he gave up if the heaven could give him another chance. If the Yun Luo red lotus was in his hands, he could fuse the fire and ice, increasing the power by at least 10 times. Chapter 1846. Thunderous battle. Dongfang Xian's complexion was red, and his eyes were green as he stared at Su Luo. You're right. It's really the Yun Luo red lotus. Su Luo raised her eyes with a smile. She knew that the more proud she was, the more furious Dongfang Xian became. After all, the Yun Luo red lotus was so close to him. Yun Luo red lotus. Li Yaoyuan's whole body was tense, and his eyes were fixed on Su Luo. According to his position, he naturally heard of the legendary Yun Luo red lotus, but he always thought that it was a legend, and he didn't expect that fire actually existed. That's right. Only the Yun Luo red lotus could really block the ice-attributed attack of Dongfang Xian. However, as soon as Su Luo's Yun Luo red lotus came out, Li Yaoyuan knew that it was necessary to kill Su Luo today. With these treasure, as long as she escaped this time, and give her plenty of time, then the girl's achievements in the future would absolutely be extraordinary. Go! Li Yaoyuan and Dongfang Xian looked at each other and understood the deep meaning in each other's eyes. Kill Su Luo. Both of them were stronger than Su Luo. Join hands. One killing move. All around, attack from 2 sides. There was no escape. For a time, Su Luo was in a disadvantage. After a while, Su Luo felt the pressure, and she almost collapsed. But Nangong Luoyun was hindered by elderly, and he couldn't come. Yun Luo Red Lotus was strong, but after all, it was just a child. After burning just once, and it was already tired, Su Luo's situation was in danger. In a moment, she believed that she couldn't hold on. Amplify the attack, Li Yaoyuan ordered. He was afraid of change, so, regardless of his status, all of his moves were big moves and killing moves. You can be regarded as people with status. If you are joining hands to attack, aren't you afraid to be a joke? Su Luo sneered. Dead people can't make a joke. Dongfang Xian smiled coldly. He had already made up his mind. Among the people here today, Su Luo was going to die. Bang! Li Yaoyuan struck Su Luo with a heavy palm. Su Luo was fighting with Dongfang Xian, and for a moment she couldn't take care of it, and she could only accept it. Su Luo felt that her spine was almost broken, her throat was sweet, and a stream of blood was spurting from her mouth. Blood spurted out like a blood mist. At this time, Dongfang Xian was in front of Su Luo. At this moment, he could not avoid it. Su Luo spurted out blood to him from head to toe. Dongfang Xian's head, face, body, and feet were all covered with blood. He was stunned for a moment. In this life, when did he ever been so humiliated like this? Su Luo had severe pain in her back and her chest, but at this time she felt happy and full of smiles. She laughed and said, "What are you angry about? What a dislike. My blood is a life-saving medicine, and it is better than an emperor-grade medicine." Dongfang Xian heard the words and laughed instead of being angry. "You girl reminded me. When I kill you, your blood must not be wasted." Su Luo's blood not only could cure diseases, but also could resurrect the dead and put flesh to the bones of the dead. Didn't you see Beichen Ying's death? But in the end, wasn't it Su Luo who forcibly dragged his life back from the death door? Su Luo's blood was very important. Is that so? You also have to be able to take it. But it's useless to you. You have to die first, Su Luo sneered. At this moment, although Su Luo's face remained calm, her heart was anxious. If it went on like this, as Dongfang Xian said, she would surely die. Chapter 1847, Thunderous Battle. But in fact, Su Luo was not desperate, because she still had a card in her hand. Battle God Puppet. Thinking of the Battle God Puppet, Su Luo wanted to cry. This foodie, although its strength was very strong, but she simply couldn't afford it. At the first challenge of the Roaming Dragon's secret territory, how many treasures she got, how many purple crystal stones she cheated from Dongfang Xian. Enough for her cultivation for several years, but all of them were put into the Battle God Puppet's mouth and digested by him as food. Now, although Su Luo could bring out the Battle God Puppet, but Su Luo scanned her space for a second, and there was nothing good there. If the last crystals were all given to the Battle God Puppet, then the little fox and the variant acacia tree's cultivation could only be interrupted. It would be unfair to them. Moreover, the interruption of cultivation had a great impact to their future. Just when Su Luo was hesitating, suddenly a cold light came to her. At the same time, a cold light attacked from Su Luo's back. Dongfang Xian and Li Yaoyuan couldn't fight for a long time. So at the same time, they made a move that they were intensely proud of. Attacked from two sides, there was no escape. Soon, Su Luo was about to become somebody who was between the hammer and the anvil. Just at this moment, Su Luo's eyes moved slightly. Before Su Luo responded, all of a sudden, the world became still at this moment. Everything, including the two attacks towards Su Luo, was frozen. Su Luo's mood soared to the highest in a flash. Capable to make the space immobile, there was only one person on this continent. That person's name was Rong Yun. Su Luo's eyes subconsciously looked forward. Sure enough, in the blue sky, a beautiful man in white clothes, like walking on a stairs, slowly walking down. He was handsome, graceful, with fluttering clothes. It was stunning. It seemed that all the people below were a painting, and he was the master of the painting. One only saw his broad sleeves slightly raised. The world soon returned to motion. "Master!" Su Luo made 2 steps at a time, ran quickly, embraced Rong Yun's arm, and was very intimate. Rong Yun, who had always been obsessed with cleanliness, always kept people away from him, but he never resisted Su Luo's intimacy. Rong Yun's beautiful eyebrows slightly wrinkled, and Su Luo's smooth forehead was hit by his slender fingers. "Stupid!" Su Luo was in pain and covered her forehead to protest. "Master, what was stupid about this disciple?" Rong Yun did not speak, but noticed the blood that had not been wiped off on the corner of Su Luo's mouth. His calm eyes instantly similar to violent wind and rainstorm. His white, jade-like hands were raised, and his cold fingertips caressed Su Luo's lips. There was a smudge of blood. At this moment, the calm world was windless. The endless cold filled quickly. "It's so cold." Li Yaoyao's body was almost frozen into a popsicle. Even Zi Yin couldn't stand it, and her teeth was chattering. Dongfang Xian and Li Yaoyuan had a chill that quickly spread from the bottom of their feet to their limbs. Fear, awe. That was their first reaction after seeing Rong Yun's appearance. Frightened and awed. This was their first reaction after seeing Rong Yun appear. Rong Yun turned his head, and the calm eyes slowly swept everyone, one by one. In contact with his eyes, the chill in Dongfang Xian's heart grew more and more. He did not dare to meet Rong Yun's eyes and lowered his head subconsciously. Chapter 1848. Thunderous Battle. "Was that you?" Grandmaster Rong Yun's voice was calm, as if there were no waves or billows, no smoke or fire. He pointed his finger at Dongfang Xian. Although his fingers did not contain a trace of lethality and aggression, Dongfang Xian felt his heart was suffocating at this moment. Obviously, he was already a saint rank. Why was he so afraid of Grandmaster Rong Yun? Dongfang Xian scolded himself for being a disappointment. In the same time, he summoned up his courage, suddenly looked up and stared at Rong Yun. However, Rong Yun's eyes were too bright. They were as bright as the endless sun, stinging Dongfang Xian's eyes until tears were coming out. Dongfang Xian did not dare to answer. Grandmaster Rong Yun's eyes slowly turned to Li Yaoyuan. Contact with Rong Yun's eyes. Li Yaoyuan's heart was constantly shaking, so much so that he didn't know where to put his hands and feet. Li Yaoyuan secretly scolded himself for failing to meet expectation. In the face of the elder, although he revered him, but he was not as frightened as he was now. Actually, Li Yaoyuan didn't know. Su Luo was not only the reverse scale of Nangong Luyun, but also the reverse scale of Rong Yun. Rong Yun lived alone in this world, but the only thing he could care about was Su Luo. Most of the elites who stand aloof from worldly affairs liked to shield their shortcomings and also paranoid. Even he himself couldn't bear to use force to her. But these tiny ants beat his girl and also made her bleed. This made Rong Yun, who had always been indifferent as a deity, became angry. Therefore, the air was filled with the pressure of a powerful monarch. Most of this power was concentrated on Dongfang Xian and Li Yaoyuan. Therefore, they were frightened to that extent. "Do you want to do it yourself, or should this seat do it?" Rong Yun's words were as light as a breeze, and his eyes were like ancient well, without a ripple, but to everyone who listened to it, it sounded like a call from hell. His words were abrupt, but everyone understood them. He was asking whether Dongfang Xian and Li Yaoyuan chose to commit suicide or to be killed. Dongfang Xian and Li Yaoyuan looked at each other. Especially Dongfang Xian, the feeling was complicated. Because not long ago, he was arrogantly told Beichening that they should choose a way to die. But now, he was treated the same way. Retribution really came fast. Su Luo wiped the blood on the corner of her mouth, looked at Dongfang Xian with a smile, then laughed, rejoicing in others' misfortune. Naturally, she was going to gloat. Although she couldn't compare with Dongfang Xian in strength, it doesn't matter. She had a master who was super protective. What was she afraid of? Li Yaoyuan was frightened, and his muscles trembled. However, he summoned up his courage and carefully bowed to Grandmaster Rong Yun. Grandmaster, this is the personal affair of the younger generation. Why bother about such trivial things? The implication was that it's a matter of the younger generation, so Grandmaster Rong Yun shouldn't interfere. It was like a fight between children, and the adults came out to get revenge, which was ridiculous. Dongfang Xian also bent down and respectfully said, "If Grandmaster Rong Yun wants to compete, I believe my master will be willing to accompany you. What do you say?" At this time, the battle between Elder Li and Nangong Luyun was also forced to end, but the elderly did not dare go out. He and Rong Yun were the same generation. If he wanted to compete with himself, it would be bad. Chapter 1849. Thunderous battle. Rong Yun's eyes swept over the faces of Dongfang Xian and Li Yaoyuan. Suddenly, he smiled faintly. "It seemed that you chose to be killed." A sentence as light as a feather, ignoring Dongfang Xian and Li Yaoyuan's intention. So, in the face of absolute strength, all conspiracy and scheming were paper tigers. No matter how many devious ideas Dongfang Xian and Li Yaoyuan had, they were useless in the face of absolute strength. When was the last time he got angry? It seemed like many years ago. Rong Yun had been indifferent for a long time, but he missed this kind of mood. Unfortunately, there were not many people who could make his mood went up and down. Rong Yun sighed secretly in his heart. Hearing Grandmaster Rong Yun's words, Dongfang Xian and Li Yaoyuan looked at each other and didn't know what to do. Rong Yun smiled faintly. His eyes were as cold as ice, and in the eyes of Dongfang Xian, they were gleaming with killing intention. What to do? The cold sweat on Dongfang Xian's forehead condensed into beads and rolled down. No last words? Grandmaster Rong Yun asked again kindly. Since he had already issued the dead man card, there was no possibility to change anything. So he looked at them as if he were looking at a cold corpse. However, for the corpse, Grandmaster Rong Yun should be kind to the human beings and kindly ask if they wanted to leave their last words. Dongfang Xian's heart was bitter. But could it be that he should just sit and wait for death? Dongfang Xian was not that stupid. At this time, Dongfang Xian and Li Yaoyuan met in the air and nodded solemnly to each other. Since it's a dead end, it's better to fight with all your strength. Only in this way they could have a chance to live. After all, Dongfang Xian thought that he was already saint-ranked. He should not be far away from Grandmaster Rong Yun. In an instant, the two white lights exploded towards Grandmaster Rong Yun. Dongfang Xian and Li Yaoyuan chose to strike first. Only in this way they could have a chance to win. But what broke them down was what happened next. In the face of the strongest attack from the two powerful men, Grandmaster Rong Yun still stood in place, even without moving his robe. Then the world was still. Dongfang Xian and Li Yaoyuan still keep their previous attacking postures. But their bodies were frozen rapidly, and their bodies were as stiff as popsicles, which seemed very funny. Even their proudest moves were held in place. The whole world was under Grandmaster Rong Yun's control. Although Dongfang Xian couldn't move his body, his mind was active. At this time, he almost wept with grief and indignation. He thought that even if he could not kill Grandmaster Rong Yun, he could still wounded him and left some scars, but now let alone scars. Even one move, oh no, even one move didn't reach Grandmaster Rong Yun's body, and the battle was already over. Was there anything more tragic in the world? Dongfang Xian almost left 2 lines of sad tears. In front of that scene, even Su Luo was shocked. It took a long time for her to react. She clapped her hands in excitement and laughed. I still have powerful master. These tiny people dare to be arrogant in front of me. Su Luo was proud for a while, and Grandmaster Rong Yuns gave her a flick in the forehead. You also should not be arrogant. It was hard for Grandmaster Rong Yun to keep a straight face and admonish seriously. No, it hurts. Su Luo's eyes were glistening, and her rosy mouth cried out in pain. Chapter 1850, Thunder's Battle Go. Take care of it. Grandmaster Rong Yin placed his hands behind him. He stood still in the same place leisurely, like a deity. Obviously, he gave Su Luo the right to take their life. Okay, Su Luo was happily willing to do this job. What's more, she would deal with the 2 people she hated for a long time, Dongfang Xian and Li Yaoyuan. She walked leisurely. The cold dagger was put on Dongfang Xian's neck. Su Luo's mouth formed a strange smile. Speak, should I give you the dagger to enjoy yourself? Or should I slowly slice your flesh? Dongfang Xian's face changed slightly. He knew that falling into Su Luo's hands was the worst situation. Grandmaster Rong Yun wouldn't waste his energy on him. He would just brush his sleeves, and then he would fall down at once, and then he would die with his eyes closed. But if he fall into Su Luo's hand, with the hatred between she and himself, she would certainly deal with him with the most vicious method. Thinking of this, Dongfang Xian's heart became colder and colder. Suddenly, there was a fierce light flashed in his eyes, and then crack. There was a clear sound of broken bones. The next moment, Dongfang Xian's mandible was broken. Did you want to bite your tongue and commit suicide? Haha, Dongfang Xian, you really were going to do that? Su Luo drew a dagger, stood high, and looked at him disdainfully. Dongfang Xian really wanted to bite his tongue and kill himself just now, but how could his reaction escape Su Luo's eyes? So Su Luo simply crushed his jaw. At this time, Grandmaster Rong Yun no longer controlled the entire space, but only controlled Dongfang Xian and Li Yaoyuan. There were no ropes and they were not tied. But Dongfang Xian and Li Yaoyuan were unable to move, and their spirit power was completely brought under control, as if they were a waste. Loathsome girl, you can kill me, but you cannot humiliate me. Dongfang Xian spit out a mouthful of blood, which was mixed with several fallen teeth. From childhood until adult, this was the most humiliating time for Dongfang Xian. Can be killed but cannot be humiliated? Then I will humiliate you. What can you do? Su Luo's eyes were full of ridicule. You! Dongfang Xian was furious, glared at Su Luo. All of a sudden, Su Luo, a bright smile rose from the corner of her mouth, and then there was only a cracking sound. Args! Dongfang Xian cried out in pain. His right hand, down from his arm, was cut off by Su Luo. Blood gushed out like a fountain. At this time, there was no spiritual protection. Dongfang Xian was like a waste, almost fainted from the pain. He was trembling all over, and the sweat on his forehead was dripping continuously, and his face was as pale as a paper. Enjoy it, this is just the beginning. Su Luo squatted in front of Dongfang Xian, looking at the dagger stained with red blood, smiling playfully like a child. Starting from the roaming dragon's secret territory, Su Luo's mind had been depressed under the pursuit of Dongfang Xian. Her life was in danger, over and over again. It was not just her who suffered these dangers. Her friends also suffered. If she didn't come in time, Bai Chening and Zi Yin would become mummies because of their excessive consumption of spirit power. If they didn't come in time, Bai Chening, An Yeming, and Lan Xian the three people's soul would probably scattered and flew away. All of this was caused by Dongfang Xian, and Su Luo would never forgive him. That you're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.